Welcome back to American Arms Channel, and today, as you can tell by the title of the video, we're taking a look at part 3 of the SDS Imports AKSA S4 series. I'll get out of the way right now. I've said AKSA multiple times in the prior two videos. Apparently I have dyslexia when it comes to Turkish manufacturers' names, so oops, sue me. But it is actually AKSA, the AKSA S4. You don't know how many times I've had to say the name AKSA or AKSA off camera. Very embarrassing. Today we're going to go over the S4's performance thus far, accessories that I have equipped it with, and a little bit of the reasoning behind that, as well as a report on parts compatibility as it appears for this particular Turkish clone. Now, the question that everybody, of course, is asking is, are these Turkish clones just as good, or are they worth my time? Well, I can't tell you whether or not they're worth your time because I don't know what you're looking for. But if you are looking for something that is just as good, and the S4 has caught your eye and caught your fancy, I will tell you that it is, in fact, not just as good as a Benelli. That's going to sting some guys. They're going to get a little bit hurt that the $585 shotgun that American Arms Channel purchased for testing as an M4 clone from Turkey is not just as good as the $1,800 Italian Perfection that is the real M4. I know perfection is maybe not the best term, but the fact of the matter is, when you stack this up against the real thing, or even other Turkish brands that might be producing this, such as the TAC 12, and I do not have a TAC 12 on hand. If I did, I'd make comparisons, but it's not just as good. A lot of these guns will not be just as good. But the real question is it good enough? We'll eventually find out. This isn't a final review, but if you're looking for me, agreeing with your choice to purchase the S4, or you're looking for a reason to purchase it, this is not my nod of approval. It's just telling you the bare bones fact of the matter. It is not just as good, but it's a pretty decent shotgun. So there is that. The second caveat to this is that the S4 is great out of the box, with the asterisk that you need to pull everything with a thread on it off the gun, not the choke tube of course, but everything on with a thread on it off the gun, and put blue Loctite on it and put it to snug, and then just a touch bass snug, and she'll stay torqued down. That goes for, and when I say a thread, everything on the gun but the choke tube, obviously. So it is what it is. But out of the box, it seems to be a fantastic gun, and it will break in to run some super light loads. The caveat to that is that you have to be quality loads, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But when you start tinkering with the gun and modifying any internals or any of the configuration, you do run the risk that it won't remain as solid of a performer. And I did find that out about this gun, but it wasn't unexpected with my prior experience and the knowledge that, yeah, when you change something away from its base configuration, you could be looking at a little bit of a project. And so if you're looking for an M4-esque Turkish gun that doesn't cost a lot, that's pretty decent out of the box and will run really well with quality ammunition, you can feel pretty confident in buying this. And if you like a project, whether you're trying to make a tricked out M4 that's not an M4 that costs you less than $1,200 in total with everything on the gun, or you're looking for just a project for fun, or maybe you want to test the waters, you want to see if, do I really want to save up to an M4? Do I want to play with this? Am I really going to like this platform? Do I want a beater gun that I can just run the dog piss out of? And I might decide, you know what? That was pretty cool. I'm going to save up for the real thing. Well, I think the S4 is your gun. So if you're looking for that encouragement, whether to buy it or not buy it, those are my Spark Notes version of what we're about to get into. So, first point, let's go into what I've equipped this gun with, then we'll go on to little tips and tricks and fitting issues, and then we'll talk about some reliability stuff and current round count. So, right off the bat, let's get right into it. The Mesa Urbino stock. Makes it look like a Benelli instead of that Turkish stock, which is very comfortable. It's not terrible in appearance, but very comfortable, but a little bit long for a lot of people. Not for me, but it does not assist in leverage of that muzzle flipping up. So there is that. Recoil control isn't as great. So we've got the Mesa Tactical Urbino here. Good stock. American made, counts towards your 922R compliance if you're worrying about that. Next up is going to be the Battle Steel rail. This is a $50 rail. You can get it from ProTac. But the Battle Steel rail here is set up for an Aimpoint T1, T2 type optic. If you run a optic that has like this Holosun 403B that has the battery compartment underneath the field of vision, at the bottom of the optic, you're going to have a little bit higher set mount. It will not co-witness whatsoever with your iron sights. However, if you run something like a real Aimpoint, but if it is mounting the red dot battery and dial on the side or top, well, it's actually going to co-witness about lower 1/3, which is pretty cool, but not absolutely necessary. Just depends on what you want to do. I've been pretty happy with this 403 while I've had it on the gun, and it performed pretty well at the range today. Moving down the gun, we have a Freedom Fighter Tactical handguard set. Now this, was it necessary to replace those? Not really. The factory, that is, but these do have to be fitted to your gun. It allows you the opportunity to make sure they're really tight and solid. There's no forward back slop, and I actually do like them. They are supposedly a very high glass content and supposed to be better at heat resistance, and I can say that yes, they are much better than the factory OEM grips for one, fit, because I had to hand fit them, and two, heat resistance. Yeah, you get your thumb up towards the barrel here. If you're doing a high stance, don't thumb wrap, you know, it's gonna get hot quick, but they definitely don't absorb heat quite as quickly. I think they're a fairly good quality component. They're not perfect on, you know, like there's a little bit of flash on them. They're a little bit not out of spec, I don't want to say, but I would just say the fit on them is not perfect. You have to do a little bit of cleanup work if you're OCD like that. But that apparently is part of having the higher glass-filled content with the polymer that they're using. So pretty strong, so far so good, and you could always stipple and put grip tape on for extra grip. The magazine fowler has been replaced from the factory one to the Freedom Fighter Tactical, mostly because I was getting the grips anyway, so I ordered that. It's made in America, and it's stamped in big letters right on the front of it. You can see it when you put the lifter down, made in America. So there's your 3 922R compliant parts, as long as you're doing a fixed stock after you're extending the magazine tube. If you're doing a collapsible stock, you'd need 4 or 5 total parts, I believe. But I only had to worry about the 3 because only adding the magazine tube extension. Next up, you gotta have a torch on the gun, so I went with the impact weapon components, light mount and sling mount. A lot of guys mount this forward. I kind of turned it around backwards. It didn't line up perfectly, but it clamps down securely. Once I have my sling equipped on this gun, I thought that looked a little bit more trim, and I didn't like the idea of kind of a hook out there. Plus, if I want to take my opposite side and brace into some sort of a form there, whether it's you know, a pillar, side of a building, whatever it may be, for a more steady shot with something like a slug, I can do that. So, allows you to mount whether you're utilizing a light that has a 1913 Picatinny rail mount or as a direct scout mount. I have the Streamlight ProTac Rail 2. It was on clearance at Optics Planet, looked like a pretty decent light, decided to check it out, and if there's one way to test something that's electronic, put it on a fairly lightweight 12 gauge and run the snot out of it. That'll show you whether or not it's a decent piece of equipment or an electronic. So 650 lumen, very nice, works really well, and the side flash kind of lights up that front sight post. So if you're just running irons, hell, you've got a very clear front sight post when you're looking in the dark. Outside of that, our last item is the KZ+2 magazine tube extension for the Benelli M4. This extension is also from ProTac. It's up under $50, and really because the magazine tubes are so expensive and there's no lesser priced OEM Benelli 7-round tubes on the market in 2021, at least that I have found at the time that I purchased and have been setting up this shotgun, it has been a much more economically feasible way to get the gun to 7 rounds. So there's that. Pretty simple on accessories. Pretty much I just wanted a different, better, more Benelli-esque stock, and the Urbino was the right one for the job. And then after that, I just went ahead and got my magazine capacity, etc. One thing I will say is that if you're worried about having to buy a spring, I will say that the spring inside the 5-round tube, just like in the real Benelli M4, is actually a 7-round spring. So same spring, same fowler, you just throw your tube on. You can worry about 922R compliance. I'm not your legal counsel, nor am your mother, so that's your prerogative. But I did go with 922R compliance on this shotgun. Now, I will say, magazine cap did not really like this this extension's threads. Is that the cap or is that the threads? Well, seeing how I took the Charles Daly 601's magazine cap and threaded it on perfectly, I think it's the cap. So I did have to polish the threads and get it so it goes on there fairly easily. It's extremely tight, but you know what? That's okay with me. Again, this is not a Benelli M4, so I don't expect everything to be perfect and precise. I do expect some fitting to be needed. That said, it did thread onto the 5-round tube perfectly, so the extension was pretty good. I did polish up the transition to help with the rounds as well as the fowler, transitioning over that slight lip as it goes from the slightly larger diameter of the extension to the slightly lesser diameter of the 5-round tube. So there is that. And because of today's range experience, I have replaced the magazine spring with a much longer one, a little bit higher tension, and we'll get into that in just a second. But do note that, you know, you will have to do a little bit of fitting, a little bit of tinkering. Again, blue Loctite is your friend with this gun, not only out of the box, but with all of these accessories. If you're cinching something down with a thread on a shotgun, you need to Loctite it, you need to make it snug anyways. Don't go dum-dum strength on it because you'll strip a thread. A lot of these screws are going to be aluminum or steel going into aluminum, so be careful about that. But Loctite is your buddy, and using your top knot is as well. So if you don't want to tinker, I suggest probably a different gun. Now, on to range report. So at the time that I'm filming this, I actually have about 340 shells through the gun. It has malfunctioned. The simple thing to say is that quality shells, whether import or US manufactured, are going to work in the gun. They're simply going to work. Crap shells, low-powered ammunition, will provide some hiccups. Today, the failures were failures to feed onto the lifter. Once the shell was on the lifter, it went ahead fine. But it was only an issue with one ammunition, and that was the Rio Heavy Field Load. The cases, upon further inspection, seem to be slightly larger in diameter on the head, the case head, and the brass itself. It just seemed to be a bit of a tighter fit inside the tube, but the solution is to check for debris, check for if anything needs to be polished or brought into a little bit different spec, adjusted, and then add extra tension. So now I have assured that pretty much if there is a shell, and these are snap caps by the way, if there is a shell going into the gun, holding it vertical here, it is going to feed onto the lifter. Doing this on camera and backwards vertically is a little bit tricky, as you can imagine. But so I believe I've resolved that issue. Another issue that has cropped up that came up in the original range session right after I bought the gun, but I have now seen, is that the firing pin retaining pin wanted to walk out. The O-ring was slightly oversized for the pin, and after multiple shots it would start to walk out. So what I've actually done, and I've been playing with this here this afternoon, it's not gone to the range, but I took the firing pin retaining pin out of my Stoeger M2000 and put it in this gun and swapped them around. The AKSA seemed to fit the Stoeger just fine. It's a Benelli firing pin retaining pin pattern. This one though, and this is an older O-ring, so this doesn't entirely surprise me, but because of the extra tension, It has split it slightly, but it is tougher to get that guy out of there. One, because the diameter of the pin is a little bit closer to its actual hole, and two, because, well, the head is correct size and the O-ring's the correct size. So it seems to be working out just fine. We'll have to put a live session because it's a small problem, but it is a little bit concerning. However, when the gun runs fine. Again, quality ammunition is going to operate in this gun thus far. At 340 shells through it, do I know how this gun's going to do for the next 10,000 rounds, including spring re-ups? No, I do not. I can tell you though, I do not see this having the longevity of the real M4. Things are wearing in just fine. It's an accurate gun. The patterns are nice. I like the full choke, the factory full choke in this gun. It's still earning its stripes as far as, you know, reliability and durability. I don't see a lot more problems with it, especially with that magazine spring, change out, etc. But yeah, so your big points of note thus far are, you know what, some accessories might require a little bit of fitting. It is Benelli M4 compatible. Seems that threads in Loctite are your friend. You know, Loctite, everything that's got a thread on it, if you don't want it loosening up. And as far as wear and durability goes, this gun will wear. The KZ tube actually matches the finish really well and wears about the same. I have not been gentle with this gun, but I've not been abusive. It comes in and out of the truck, goes in and out of its range bag, and it has little marks here and there. I've done some reloading drills. I'm not treating it with kit gloves, and it's picking up marks. So if you kind of like the well-weathered, battle-torn look, probably first year ownership, especially if you do a lot of dry fire cycling drills, it's going to pick up that look very quick. The charging handle is already picking up a very faint whitening, so the finish is not sticking with it, but it's probably the most or second most handled part on the gun. The shell stop is wearing bluing off of it. Doesn't have really that pretty blue anymore. The safety's doing very well. There is a bit of finish wearing off of the trigger housing, which is either in a cast aluminum that's milled to finish or something like a big chunk of zinc. It doesn't seem to be a problem. I've taken multiple bumps and dings so far, and all it's done is chipped off what appears to be paint, not actually anodization, which makes me start to think that this is not a piece of aluminum. So, you know, that's another part you could swap out. And the trigger pull, clearing this gun, safe direction, the trigger pull, there is creep, there's take up, kind of almost two-stagey now, and then it breaks probably right around 4.5, 5 pounds. It works for a defensive and combat shotgun, or even a hunting shotgun for deer and hog. So is this going to fulfill its purpose for me? Yes, it is. It's very much fulfilling its purpose for me. There are some small concerns, and we'll keep you guys updated as we go along. But other than that, I like it. You're going to have to make a decision on whether or not it's good for you. I can only comment on this gun and the Charles Daly. Charles Daly is absolutely a no-go. And this gun is a, you know, be mindful of what you're buying, but the gun works, but you might have some quirks with it. That said, that's where it is, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and as always, God bless, keep your powder dry. We'll be talking about this guy some more very soon. See you guys.